Hello. Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Asma Kadri. I'm here to take the career counseling session with Anvita today. So, thank you, everyone, for joining Expatron's career counseling session. As a platform serving 1.85 early career professionals all over the world, we are here with our video assisted platform. And we have reached approx 75,000 aspirants and onboarded approx 1,500 experts. So today we bring to you one of our premium experts, Miss Anvita Dekhane. So Anvita is currently pursuing her MBA at Harvard Business School, and she is an anomalist of IIT Bombay, where she pursued metallurgical engineering. She has also worked as an investment analyst with Sequoia Capital, which is a venture capital firm, and as a management consultant with Boston Consulting Group, popularly known as BCG. Anvita is passionate about building new products for the women. She has also worked with BabyChakra as a chief of staff, which is a parenting platform online. Today, she will be sharing about her career journey, her decision to take MBA in one of the Ivy League institutes, and her entrepreneurial stints and tips for aspirants who have plans to pursue MBA either for management or entrepreneurship. So, hi Anvita. Firstly, I would love to congratulate you on your achievement. Anvita, you seem to be on a roll.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Asma. This is a pleasure to be on this platform. And like Asma shared, guys, Expetrons is one of the most disruptive platforms I've come across, and it's been a pleasure to be on it as an expert and now connecting with you guys to share my experience. I'd love to be of as much help as I can. And yeah, let's dive right in. Happy to answer any other questions that come along the way as well.
Amazing. Okay, let's start with the journey then. So, Anvita, how do you feel to be a part of such an elite institution, which is also one of the oldest?
So it's nothing less than an absolute pleasure. And hand on heart, with every passing day, that feeling is getting reinforced because I'm meeting more of my professors, I'm meeting more of my section mates, my community of students who have joined with us, etc. And it's extremely diverse. And there's one motto or motive, in general, an inspiration that I kept following all my life, and we'll talk more about it in the coming time. But something that I personally believe is that you should be surrounded by some really smart people who push you to do more. And somebody had told me this, and I completely agree with that. That you are a combination of the most closest or the closest people to you. Um, and it's always awesome to be around some smart people, just to be friends with them, just to understand how their journey has been. And just from that networking, just from being close to them, it just teaches you so much about perspectives in life, about what opportunities are there. And that's a starting point to build from there and understand what do you want to do in life. But just being around her, it's just an unparalleled feeling.
That sounds wonderful, Anvita. It definitely sounds like an experience. All right. So, moving forward, Anvita, there is a lot of hard work which goes behind, landing on a top B school like HBS. So, if you could walk us through your journey from, test preparation to essays to interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right there, Asma. It's been a like a dedicated 6 month journey, that at least a 6 month journey that goes in. And like you mentioned, the multiple steps. So you start with tests, then you have your essays, and then recommendations, and then interviews, etc. But a step before that, which takes years of preparation, I'm sure, is your profile building. And we'll touch upon that in some questions here, but that's where it really starts with. So if you're looking at getting into a good school, like an HBS, you will need to start thinking about how you're contributing to the school itself also, and that's going to be a big factor for the school to think about letting you in. So the preparation actually starts a few years in advance, where you start thinking about the kind of profile you're building and the kind of value add you'll do to the school. But in terms of the process, you're right. We start with an examination, so that could be a GMAT or a GRE. Being an engineer as background, GMAT came most natural to me, so that's the exam I had attempted. And once you give that exam, there is public information on all these school websites on what's typically the range of scores that they have students coming in. And interestingly, that range is very, very wide. So you'll see, for instance, at HBS, you'll see that people also come with a score of 560, 570, but that's extremely one off. And the first point I mentioned about the profile drives your decision to come in at that point. But they also give out something called a median GMAT score or a median GRE score. That should be your north star to saying that should be the aim in terms of a comfort on saying once this is achieved, I think all other factors start playing in once there is a median score or around that you get in. Post that, there is the essay writing. That's a very exhaustive process, more so because it's very open ended. So you don't get a question on your specific jobs. They don't ask you what was your work at the previous or what do you want to do in life in general. It's a very open-ended question on things like what really motivates you or who are you as a person. So it needs a lot of introspection on what are your skill sets in terms of leadership style, working style, what really motivates you or drives you as a leader, what drives you to have the vision you're having for the next few years or long-term career, etc. So that takes a bit of self journey where you start. And every school has typically two essays. A few schools have essays. If you have, for instance, one of the schools written, for instance, if you have Wharton written, a couple of schools get taken care of a little bit. So there is some overlap there, but every school has its own set of questions and themes that you need to think about. Just a heads up, for instance, in terms of how much time these essays can take. For me, it was a last minute preparation, so I wouldn't put that as a benchmark. But given good time, given the right time as needed, each school essay can take nothing less than 2 to 3 weeks. If you dedicatedly spend a few hours every day to think about it, because it needs to be iterated a lot. They're at least like between 700 to 1100 words, which is a lot, and they're all open ended. So you can put in as much as you want, but that needs to be coherent, that needs to give a strong story. So there are a lot of these factors that come in which you need to be careful about. Once the essays are done, there is a process of letter of recommendation. So every school asks about two recommendations from you, from your recent colleague, so your current manager who you were working with, and one typically an ex boss or your ex manager. These are relevant for, obviously, I mean, the reasons are obvious. I mean, they need to just validate that who you are as a person is also being reflected in what your recommenders have to say. Typically, these recommenders end up being at good positions at wherever they were earlier, probably partners or principals or recent managers, general managers, and stuff. So their validation is a check mark for the school saying, the candidate is as authentic as you want to. So that's the next step. And then there are some regular application processes for you to fill in your details about your education, about your profession, what, in a couple of lines, what was your role, what were your leadership that you've done, etc. Fairly standard, fairly adjustable. So you can finish all of those in 3 days if you just give the dedicated. And that's about it. You just then wait for interview. If you get interview, about 3 to 4 weeks of preparation. You can choose a time slot when you can do. Barring one or two schools, like a Wharton, for instance, also does a group discussion after you get an interview call. So there is a group discussion right before your interview. So you'll have 4 or 5 people doing a GD, and then immediately you're taken into an interview that's lasts much smaller. But for barring that, there is typically a one-on-one interview with one of the admission council committee members, and it's more like a 30 to 45-minute chat about how has been your journey, etc. And typically every school has their own sets of things they look at in interviews. So once there are interview calls, you reach out to people who have been in the schools and what's being asked in the interview. Just one small headliner, and then I'll have Asma come in again. But in this entire process, what really helped me was to be surrounded by people who are at these schools or our recent alums. It helps a lot to understand what the school culture is like. And while it seems that HBS could be a obvious choice or a first choice, obviously because it's such a known school and the brand is very strong, it's important for you to find the fit for yourself in terms of which school makes sense for you. Every school will have a set number of courses, some professors, some clubs which will stand out to you. And depending on what you want to do in life, it'll be wise if you should shortlist those schools for yourselves and understand what the culture is like, what the learning is like, what do you really take away from these schools, by connecting to a lot of these mentors in a lot of ways, as current students or alums.
That was really informative. I am sure that our attendees would have, gathered good knowledge about the preparation and conduct during the interviews. Just one thing that I would like to tell our audience is that you can note down everything, and we are going to have a question and answer session after this, so that we can, take your questions one by one. So please note down, and in the comment section, you can post them later. Okay, let's move forward. Okay. So, what are the top three things you would give to aspirants preparing for B school, Anvita?
Asma, I missed the question. Sorry, I just got disconnected for a few seconds.
No issues. So, Anvita, my question is that what are the top three things you would like to give to aspirants preparing for B schools?
Um, I think the first one goes to the last point I made earlier. The first thing all of you should do, whoever is aspiring to get into B schools or think of applying, is that just connect with people, connect with them at a personal level to just understand your fit. You should have very, very basic questions on, what is a typical day for them like, what do they want to do in life, and what do majority of the students in their class want to do, if there's a pattern and if that relates to you. You should have questions like, what are the clubs that are very most active, which are the ones that are genuinely relevant, which are the professors, which are the courses that really stood out to them, etc. Just understand which school makes most sense to you. That's definitely the first thing you guys should do, or you should do if you're thinking of applying, and that's independent of an international school or a Ivy League to any other school as well. um, I think the second is, be sincere about the process. It takes time, right? I mean, it's not a 2-day application. It starts with you preparing yourself for the exam, followed by writing all these essays, which take a lot of time. Then reaching out to your recommenders and helping them with any help they need on the letters, etc. And then if you get interviews, preparing for interviews also. So it's a sincere effort to be put in for good 6 to 8 months. Um, if you're up for it, if you feel that you really want to do an MBA, only then try and think of spending that time, because you will be trading off that time with something else that you would have pursued. So be sure of why MBA, be sure of where do you want to go. Be very cognizant of what the process is like. So just visit the website, just talk to people on what the admission process is like, just understand that process in and out before you're applying, and be sure of hence what you want to do. So that's going to be the second one. And third one, I think would be a little more on once you are closer to getting in. And that's something I am personally in the zone of right now, where I actually am at HBS. I was fortunate, or I made it here safely. I'm quarantined in my room. um, but the one thing that most people told me, which is becoming more and more relevant right now, is that come prepared to these B schools as well in terms of what do you want to gain out of them. And that goes back to the point of applying, because if you're sure, or if you're close to the answer of what you want to do in life long term, it'll be a great resource as a school like HBS to um, make the most of. You'll have very specific professors you can reach out to, very specific courses you can do, very specific clubs you can join. You will also know the kind of people who you want to immediately connect with professionally, because you know what you want to do in life in long term. That's all. That always comes more handy versus a scenario where you're still in the exploratory phase. While I know that may be the case, and that's okay. But a heads up there that it can get very overwhelming if you're at a school like HBS, because or similar schools on these lines, because there will be a ton of resources, a ton of opportunities thrown at you, and to filter them basis what fits for you in long term gets very tricky if you are not close to that answer. So just be aware of that, just be cognizant of that, and don't get pulled in into everything, because you'll end up doing a lot which may not be very, very impactful versus doing something which stands out to people. So just be cognizant of that while entering any school for that matter.
I hope our attendees would definitely apply into practice year after. So, Anvita, you have graduated from one of the best engineering colleges of India, that is IIT Bombay, right? So, how was your journey at IIT Bombay? And soon thereafter, you landed at a job at a top consulting firm. So, can you elaborate about that?
Yeah, happy to. And sorry, I missed one point in the earlier conversation we did. For all you guys, I've actually put my HBS interview experience on Expertrons as well. So feel free to check it out. It talks about what were the kind of questions I was asked. So in case you're curious about how is the HBS interview process like, just feel free to check out my profile on Expertrons. You will get to know more about it. Um, Coming to Asma's question about time at IIT Bombay and then at BCG, I think I I second the thought that there is a reason why a college like IIT Bombay can be one of the top colleges, and goes back to the first point I had made in our conversation today, that if you're thrown in a pool with people who are extremely smart, extremely ambitious, there is definitely some magic that starts getting created just by the virtue of you being around those people, and that's relevant for this new batch of 800 people who are first years who join together, who are coming from varied backgrounds, have very high ambitions for themselves, are in general nerdy because they've given this long IIT JEE examination and they've cleared it. So with just that sheer base, I think it's a great place to be for you to grow yourself as a person, as a as a personality. But over and above that, what stood out and what's excellent about a place like IIT Bombay is that it throws you a ton of opportunities to take leadership positions on, know people better on. Just do a lot that will garner your style of working, and that could be around leadership, that could be around team building, that could be around just being more confident about talking in public and stuff. And I'm sure, even right now at HBS, there will be a ton of such opportunities, but it's just my first week. So I wouldn't have like actual anecdotes to share. But at IIT, things like managing your college festival, which gets a footfall of 300,000 people. All of you guys may, I'm sure, know about Mood Indigo, know about Tech Fest. You can play as any sport that you want, starting from a cricket to a football to a badminton, which is what I played. You can stand up for leadership positions and for your hostel. So you can do like a hostel general secretary, or you can do it at an institute level, which means you're almost meeting the every single week to discuss about what policy changes you want for what's happening in the student life, and actually bringing about those changes because you believe for them and you stand for them. So there is a lot of such sets of opportunities that you're exposed to, and if you want to and try and make the most of it, you will come out as a very independent independent individual who's grown in terms of their styles of leadership, their social life, being more confident probably. And that's what happened to me. The things I spoke about, I was a part of the Tech Fest team. I played badminton for the intra-IT tournaments that we do. I was a part of the one of the hostel positions again for sports secretary and stuff. All these things put together grow you as an individual, and that's what IIT Bombay gave the platform to really find yourself, find your friends, find your passion, and just grow with that. um, I also interestingly did a small venture uh, in my final year, which was a startup in some sense. And the motivation for doing that was my time at just uh, building and organizing this festival, Tech Fest. I could feel the passion of driving impact for such large scale. I mean, now I think about it, and it was still small scale, but at that point, it was a huge deal to just manage and organize Tech Fest. And that gave me a very strong motivation that if I take things under control, if there is a way for us to drive and build impact ourselves, I think starting your own venture comes like the most natural answer to it. So I started a small venture in my final year into edtech again. So we were hosting like some learning management systems on the cloud for different educational institutes. We were just the sales team, the tech team, the customer support team, because we were just like a few interns and us trying to build that. And in the first year, we sold close to about 25, 30 lakh worth of these services we were giving. So it was a good high to take back, saying this is something I really like and want to be close to the startup ecosystem. Um, but I did end up joining BCG because after a lot of speculation and conversations with seniors and mentors, what stood out was that it will be a little naive to get started at your own venture right out of college, especially when you're trading that off with a opportunity like BCG, where you end up getting again thrown into a pool with very smart people, but also with very smart clients, very large clients, and you are owning the problem that you have, owning so much to the point that you end up presenting to all of those clients who, just for reference, for instance, are CEOs of about $2 to $3 billion large organizations, and they're organizing, or they're other managing. So trading it off with that opportunity at that point did make the most sense. So taking all the feedback, or taking all the guidance, I actually chose to do BCG. And I'm quite glad it turned out that way, because it was an excellent learning just from basic problem solving and structured approach point of view. At BCG, I joined at the junior most level, like any graduate typically does, and you still get your own problem to solve. So I'll give you a quick example, right? A problem at BCG will come like, for example, a large organization which has like $1 billion in top line, but has very thin margins on its EBITDA, or its margins, right? BCG will come in saying, hey, we know your cost heads. We know we can bring each of them down by at least 20%. We'll optimize your manufacturing. We'll optimize your supply chain. We'll bring down your logistics cost. We'll also optimize your employee cost by just doing more of optimizations on maybe salary structure, so putting in more incentives, maybe, or replacing some staff because there could be some automation coming in, etc. So the partner will basically end up pitching this large problem statement that I will cut down your overall cost, overall margins and profitability. I'll increase your profitability by X%. And to achieve that will be a lot of these levers that get pulled in. So there will be a team that will start working on optimizing the manufacturing cost. Somebody will start working on optimizing logistics. Somebody will start working on optimizing employee costs, etc. When you join that team, you get your own cost to cut, for example, right, at the highest level. And it will be very different from what cases you do, etc. But for example, um, so you own that problem of, even if it's a small problem that you're saying, I'll reduce the cost of employees. It seems to be a small problem overall at the highest level. It may just add like a percent or 2% to overall cost cutting. But then it's on you to own that. It's on you to drive that initiative till the end. And that's actually it's very, that was a point where what I did as well. So I actually got one of this exact problem statements that I need to optimize employee cost. And I knew that at the highest level, it will only reduce the overall cost, profit, increase the overall profitability by a percent maybe. But barring that, I wanted to contribute the best I could, right? So I did a lot of calls and benchmarks on my own to understand what typically employee costs are. I hired an agency via BCG to just do a lot of customer interviews to understand that what is the optimum number of people really required at firms, etc. So I could drive all of that because I owned that problem statement, and nobody per se told me to conduct this research, for example. But I knew that if I wanted to own the problem, if I wanted to put my two bits into the entire overall cost cutting, I will need to own that up and be as creative as I can and just be hands on getting it done. So that's what BCG gives you as a platform, that you may be a smaller piece of the puzzle, but you own that puzzle. So it's on you to solve it with the most creativity that you can, with as much in depth research that you want to do, and get it done. So in that respect, I think BCG stood out to just give me that experience of problem solving, doing a very structured approach on any problem thrown at you, and just owning the problem to drive it end to end. Yeah.
So the insight that you gave about BCG was really exciting, and it was really inspiring, especially for those who want to, go into the holy trinity of consulting. Yeah. So now, can you elaborate more on how was consulting as a profession, and what did you really love about it?
Yeah. So maybe I covered that a little bit in what I spoke, because I probably just I just went with the flow. Um, but to your point on what I really love about consulting, in addition to being around smart people, right? That's a given now. I think that you guys can take as a base for me. I love being around smart people, and that helps me grow. So, barring that, what I loved about consulting was the point I made earlier, that it gives you complete ownership of what you want to drive, and that gives you a lot of confidence, that matures, that gives you a sense of maturity of driving decisions and taking decisions at scale. And the third thing I love about consulting, which consulting is in general infamous for, is just giving you the luxury of travel. I was on a travel case for about 13 months. I was in Kolkata. And for the and for the initial months, I think it was amazing. I was staying in the Taj, as you'd imagine. I was flying so much that I became Jet Airways Platinum member. I became Taj Platinum, etc. I mean, I got a lot of these added benefits that typically consulting is famous for. And towards the end, in complete honesty, I realized that that's not the most sustainable way to live. Um, Nonetheless, I think that's definitely it ends up becoming a wow factor when you land up yourself at a consulting job, that you'll travel quite a bit, you'll get luxury to move, or if you're there on weekends, you can just also spend some good luxury pleasure time. But you do get that you know just the love of travel, for whatever it's worth. It's definitely a good one for some short time.
That was quite insightful, and I am definitely, the aspirants would have definitely noted down the benefits that come along with it. So, yeah. Anvita, you have also worked with Sequoia Capital, which is a top venture capital, So, can you give a brief about that?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to talk about my time at Sequoia, and it actually tied back to my passing out goal in some way from IIT, which was I wanted to stay close to the startup ecosystem, ideally start something or join a venture. But an opportunity like Sequoia completely stood out because I got a chance to work with startups from the other side of the table. So from an investor side, understand what does it take to build an investable business. Uh, Something that will excite venture investors. I think that stood out to me. And once this opportunity came my way, I think because it gave me the chance to be around the startup ecosystem, but at the same time be in a position to evaluate them, to be able to get to answers on which sectors are very interesting, what ideas are working, what's the market trend looking like, what are the headwinds, what are the tailwinds. I think with that in mind, I was glad Sequoia happened, because I mean, an experience like this is extremely valuable when you want to remain close in the startup ecosystem with whatever role you take. So with that motivation, I joined Sequoia, and it was again an amazing experience, because uh, the team is very small. At least when I was around, the team was small. The investment team in the office that I was nothing, was about sub 10 people, 10 to 11 people at best, which meant that there's a lot more ownership than even at a place like BCG, because at BCG you're still you still have a larger team that you work with on a single case. Out here, it's typically you and maybe one of your partners you work with on a particular deal, or you own any specific initiative you drive. Could be of a sector thesis, could be of doing diligence about companies or the deals that come in, or even managing portfolios for that matter. So here, that's the first thing that struck out, that it's a lot more individual role. It's a lot more ownership driven role, an independent role for that matter. um, I think other than that, the hypothesis I came in with, that I wanted to be close to the startup ecosystem, meet as many founders as I could, be in a position to evaluate ventures, etc. I think all of that came very, very well. I was happy that I got a chance to meet like really as many as founders I wanted. I did a couple of very interesting sector theses that gave me the end-to-end understanding of tomorrow, if I want to evaluate a particular idea, what's the overall exercise like. So understanding what's the competition looking, understanding, for instance, even things like where the US and China market are, and the given thesis that India will follow them in some years. I think all of those pieces kind of gelled in well, because I got hands on to do those sector thesis. And then a few deals that I worked on as well gave me that end to end understanding of just doing deals and making investments in businesses. And finally, working with some portfolio teams, actually very in depth to build businesses with them, to do some very interesting specific projects with them. I think all of these pieces kind of stood out very well. It was a very enriching experience.
Thank you, Anvita, for sharing with us your diverse work experience. I'm sure our attendees, got a sneak peek into your world of consulting and venture capital. So, Anvita, just a few days in Harvard, and you have already pioneered a podcast, Women in Venture Capital. What got you into that?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That actually started a few weeks before we started school, actually. And it stemmed from a interesting conversation I was having with one of my classmates here at HBS again, Rishvina, who actually is from Mauritius. But we basically connected on a very interesting data set that both of us are, given that we both are keen to go back to investing. We want to stay in the venture capital ecosystem. And once we started learning more about it in terms of basic statistics, what stood out very surprisingly was that there are less than 25% female partners in all of these global funds that you think about. And I'm not sure if it's directly related, but there is also less than 12% overall funding that actually went to female led businesses globally last year. These facts actually left us very startled, of course, but also uncomfortable that there are very limited role models for women if they want to break into the industry, if they want to even look at venture investing. There are very limited female partners or female role models per se, and that also trickles down to venture funds actually investing in female led businesses. Not a direct bias for sure, but it ends up becoming a bit of a part of your DNA in some sense. I mean, it's an interesting cycle that women feel a lot more comfortable. Women founders may feel a lot more comfortable pitching to women venture investors, but there aren't too many. So probably female businesses are not getting getting funds, etc. But all of that put together, we wanted to do a deep dive on what does it mean to be a woman in venture capital. Is that different? Are there any interesting struggles maybe, or something that stood out to them? So we just wanted to dig a little bit more, and we actually started connecting with people ourselves. We started meeting with a few of our section mates who interestingly echoed a very common sentiment that they don't have answers on what does it take to break into the industry, because it seems to be a bit of a black box. People don't know how to apply. People don't know what the interview process is like. It's not very traditional a process. Um, and all of that basically motivated us that hey, there isn't a given repository where people can just go in and know more about experiences on venture investing, especially by women. And while one-on-one networking solves for that, it's still broken, because if you don't have your networks, you kind of reach cold to some investors, and then it's hard to be sure that they will revert. So it becomes a little tricky. So we realized that one of the answers to that could be for us to create this repository, and that's how our podcast was really born. You should check us out on Spotify, we and even Apple Podcasts. We go by Women in Venture Capital as the name. And yeah, we're down with about 12 episodes so far, and we have some amazing guests lined up, and some amazing guests who were part earlier as well, being earlier current students, second year, being our own batchmates who've had venture investing experience, to even a few partners who came in, partners and principals on board. So it's been an exciting journey overall.
That sounds quite gutsy, and I'm sure a lot of female aspirants would be inspired to break the glass ceiling. Okay. Having built India's most loved parenting platform, BabyChakra, and helping over 2 million parents every month, you have got your hands dirty with entrepreneurship. How was that experience?
Yeah, I think that was I think the most engaging experience, where I ended up actually putting a lot of, to your point, getting my hands dirty is simplistically. And yeah, I spent a few years, like almost 2.5 years there after Sequoia before coming here. And it's been beautiful roller coaster ride. I think what struck out to me was that it takes so much guts to build a venture, and hats off to all founders doing it, including you guys. You guys are awesome. But what also stood out to me was that the passion that you carry uh, for what you want to build, the large scale impact that you want to build, gives you the persistence and courage to keep doing and keep building. And that's what happened with me for a few years, where I spent time launching some revenue verticals for BabyChakra. We launched some interesting products. We've recently launched our own private label as well, which has some amazing personal care products for babies. They're actually India's first baby safe products. And that whole journey of the entire learnings leading us to that was very exciting, because it started with us experimenting on some marketplace ideas and understanding, can we scale that up. So doing all of that firsthand, setting up teams, setting up processes, setting up all the vendor panels, etc., to get hands-on with a marketplace model, for example, and then from getting into sales to that, to realizing what really works, what formats of sales work, to be in a process of ideating that what should be our own range of private label products that we can launch. So I think overall it was extremely intense. I was also obviously involved in fundraising. I was overall involved in company building and growth and stuff. So setting up teams and processes and fundraisers and a few initiatives I drove, like this revenue vertical I spoke about. But overall, it was extremely intense, high learning process where I love the impact we could drive now. Um, it was just extremely high learnings in terms of what does it take to build a venture, what does it take to build a venture that actually is driving large scale impact, what does it mean to keep going. And I've seen some beautiful highs as well. I mean, I actually represented the company here in California as a part of the Google Accelerator, and I was here sharing with the Google team what are we building at BabyChakra. And I've seen some amazing highs as well, and obviously the lowest of the lows as well, because that's a part and parcel of your entrepreneur journey. But overall, I think it's been just an excellent roller coaster that gives you the edge as an operator if you want to go back to investing, for instance, because um, you want to know the company building aspect of it firsthand by doing it yourself rather than just speaking to entrepreneurs or reading about it. It's Somebody was telling me the other day that if you want to do investing, having an operator role is just pure gold. That's the way he put it, and he's a well-regarded member here in HBS. Also, he's a professor. But I related to that a lot because building a venture gives you that experience of empathizing with the founders to start with, which is important, but also just understanding what are the right metrics for business building. What when founders build their beautiful journey, which is always full green grass, you know where to look for those thorns. You know where to probe a little bit more just from that operator experience that you may have had. So it's been an exciting time.
That's quite motivating, Anvita. Our budding entrepreneurs surely would have, got onto their toes after hearing such an inspiring journey. Okay, so now we would open the floor for our aspirants to ask you questions and doubts. So please shoot your questions in the comment section and we can take it on. Here, Anvita, we have our first question from Roshna Sheikh. Uh, yes,
Yeah, I can
I
see
know
that.
the average. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Hi, Roshna. You mentioned that the average experience is about 4.7, but how much experience do you think will be good enough to apply for HPS? You're about 2 years of experience, and you want to apply in 3 years time by the time you join. Um, I think you're right. The average experience does mention 4.7, and it's actually for a little bit of reason as well. I think the batch that you end up joining does come with a sets of experiences that add value to you, and you want to be a part of the community where you can add value as well. While I'm sure your 2 years and one more year that you give before you join will be extremely helpful for you to do that. um, I would say that about 4 to 6 years becomes like a sweet spot. For instance, I had a 6 year experience before joining. Now I was a 2014 pass out. But there are no set rules. So if you feel that this is the right time for you to apply, um, feel free to do that. Yes, there are these average work experiences, but I also know people coming in with lower experience or much higher experiences also. So there are definitely those outliers. So you should feel free to apply, but be sure that you will be in a position to add value and take value out of your HBS experience right after your 3 years time, because at times we still need a little bit more professional experience before starting something like B school, because this is not traditional education. I mean, yes, there will be courses and there will be assignments and stuff, but it's a lot more on um, experiential learning. You learn more from your peers, so you want to be a peer as well who can help in learning. So if something gives you confidence to drive that in 3 years of professional time, feel free to apply. I think you should be good. Hi, Suyash. um, I think it's going to be very subjective. It's going to be your basis, your aspiration. If you want to stick around in India, if you want to, for some reason, be in India because maybe you want to, drive your overall long-term profession in India, it may not be a bad idea.
Anvita's net got, yeah, she's back.
Suyash, that this is for decision for you. Um, for me, I will not be biased. Sorry, give me one second. For now, I'll be biased to this pandemic is you think of the tech related coverage that you've done over that time, the collisions between tech and healthcare. What technology has emerged in this pandemic moment? Hi, so sorry. I thought. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, you're pretty audible. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I don't know why I got kicked out and what background noise started happening. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no issues.
There's long answer short. I will vote for HBS because now I have a bias. But I do think that all these Indian Ivy League schools as well have a lot of value. Um, just talk to people. Just as I said, just connect with people who are current students or ex students at both these colleges. Know your fit. If you feel you can get the value out of NIM as well, and if you feel that makes more sense for you in the long term, go for it. Good luck. Hi. That's an excellent question, and that is one. Um, Applying in B schools, especially internationally, can be taxing on as a financial burden. I do know a couple of hacks around it. However, at a B school like HBS, for instance, there is a financial aid that the HBS endowment actually gives you. So a lot of alumni who actually contribute to the HBS endowment also kind of forward or contribute to these financial aids that are given away to students. And that's sizable. I'll not get into a few numbers right here, but it's sizable. At the same time, all these schools also have a bunch of scholarships that you can apply, and most of them by default have a scholarship that is need based. Um, so that's one way out. That's one hack to think about it. Um, but having said that, there will still be a financial burden that you will end up taking, because even after those scholarships, there will be some part that you need to take as, say, an education loan. Or not everybody gets a scholarship, right? So this question of financial burden remains. The way I think about this, Pratish, is that if you're joining a good B school where you are reasonably guaranteed about your post MBA career, not in terms of what you want to do, but in average terms of what you feel you will actually be compensated on. Um, it's okay to take that burden during your school time, because, like an education loan you take, you won't be burdened to start paying right away. The repayment kind of starts about 6 months after you graduate out. And then it's on you to help pay that. And if you're graduating, like I said, from good schools where you feel there will be reasonable guarantee to end up at a good place, make reasonable money, I think you shouldn't feel so much uncomfortable taking that burden. So just I'll just give that heads up to think long term, and not short term, saying, can I take this large amount of loan? I think it will be okay in the long term. Hey Risi, you want me to elaborate on my SOP and the interview? Very happy to do that. For the interview, just check out my profile on Expatrons. I have given a brief of typically how was my experience at HBS interviews. So I'll not go very deep into that. On my SOP, I think, like I was talking, it's typically an essay writing process. You are expected to write these answers to these broadly open-ended questions for each school. You come to know about those questions once you start applying. These questions are fairly public, so if you start an application, you will come to know about them immediately. For me, the process was very, very self-reflective. Like I was sharing earlier, I had to just think more about what my achievements were, where did I think I failed, because I wanted to uh, talk about me as a person, and failure is a part and parcel of how we grow. And I kind of maintained a bit of an Excel or a Word document, which I started calling like a myself document in some way, where I started jotting down all of these pieces, even some personal experiences of how I was brought up, how my family influenced me, how my friends influenced me, and just quoting a couple of instances that stood out to me. So I started putting all of those down. Um, and depending on then the question, I molded which instance I wanted to quote in. One thing that I was cognizant of is my entire essay should be coherent. They shouldn't be these disconnected sets of stories that I just want to say because I want to put all of those in. They have to come in a flow. They should talk about how I've grown as an individual in some way. So that was one overarching approach I used. I also, by the way, took help of an external consultant to help me with this coherence process overall, and he was amazing. So yeah, I think there are a few pieces like this that help you build your SOP and prepare yourself for the interview. Hi, Sonali. This is a great question, very dear to heart for me. Talking about diversity at a place like HBS, I'm sure you guys have followed some recent news about Black Lives Matter, etc. I think that's done nothing but aggravate a lot of these pieces, a lot of these uh, issues, or a lot of these discussions overall as well. But I do know that HBS has always stood out for diversity. They have gone out of their way to support the entire community that's as diverse as you think about. In terms of plain statistics, I don't have them handy right now, but they are very publicly available on each school websites, and they've just recently released the profile of HBS of class 22 as well. So our profile, our class profile. One thing that I'd noticed was that a little less than half of us are international students. And when I look at a small diversity anecdote in my own section, which has about 70 people, um, we're almost 30 to 40% female as well. Most of us are like half of us are internationals to that extent. So yeah, that stood out, and there are people from multiple races and multiple cultures and genders as well. So it's very diverse, and what's comforting is that the school is very supportive of diversity and does whatever it takes in their capacity to support. So yeah, I can't hear you, dear Asma. Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
yeah,
Yeah, we will take two more questions now and then we will conclude.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, Risi, you have another question on thoughts on international education after recent not so friendly immigration policy changes. Have the risks increased? Oh, that's an excellent question. And uh, sadly, I don't have an answer to it right away in terms of have the risks increased, because we're still awaiting an election in November, especially in the US, like you mentioned. So it could go either way, as I'm sure you've followed. So yes, it's not been the most friendly, but for students, it's been okay. So we got our student visas well. I mean, not a lot changed for students. If you're very, very keen on sticking around in the US after your studies here, yes, it's a bit of a risk that you need to wait and watch on. So far, it's been okay in terms of trying to get your H1 for work. But yes, risks have increased in the recent time, but hoping for that to settle soon. don't have an answer right away. Hi, Kriti. You mentioned that typically 3 years of work ex is good enough for colleges in the US, but I waited for 6 long years. Was it just because I wanted to go to the Harvard? Well, actually, that's not the case, Kriti. Till about a year back, I was in the zone to not do an MBA at all. And that's been a complete shift that I personally got into. Um, while I was building BabyChakra, I was in double minds to either start something of my own right away because I was extremely passionate about, doing startups and creating impact, etc. And then there was this other extreme of taking a bit of a break, going to the US for some time, and then contemplating or thinking about what I wanted to do. So this was a thought I was personally going through about a year and a half back, early last year. And that's why it took me so much time. You're actually right, Kriti. A lot of my batchmates from Sequoia actually applied right away. When I joined Baby Chakra, they joined Harvard. So you're right, they've just graduated out as well. So it's not very natural. Maybe it was a bit non-traditional, maybe. But it just felt right to do it now. So the 6 years wasn't a time that was decided. It just happened naturally, and I think it should happen that way. You shouldn't force things because you just feel they will be right for you. You should objectively think about them. How I changed my decision from not very actively thinking about it to actually applying and getting in was a journey where I started talking to people about my long term aspirations, and how everything that people said echoed that an MBA will just enhance that time for me. Which I didn't put a very particular lens on. I was probably very short term oriented, thinking about what should I do immediately right next, and what should happen in short term. Um, but what everybody echoed was that in the long term, um, this experience will just be extremely handy from overall growth perspective, overall networking perspective, etc. So I just put that lens, and I kind of went with it. So that was my journey of applying.
Okay, now we will conclude. So, thank you everyone for attending the call. We hope it was really fruitful. We would love to hear your feedback about how much you liked the session. Please fill the feedback form. Okay. Thank you, Anvita, for such an engaging session. It was really great hearing your journey, and we hope to take away a lot of learnings today. So, thank you all for being such a patient and engaging audience. It was a really an overwhelming response. So, Anvita, what would be your final advice to the students in a nutshell?
just go with just go with the flow, but have a long term thought in mind. What do you want to get out of life? And just live it. Don't stress too much. I think it's typically thought upon as a very stressful process. Yes, it can get a little bit stressful, but try not to do that. Just go with the flow. Be informative always when you're trying to take a decision. As much information as you can get. So that'll be it. But Asma, you were awesome. I think thanks for moderating the session. I'm not sure how many of you attended
Thank
or
you
are,
so much.
but we're really happy to be on this platform. Don't forget to check out Expertrons, guys. It's an amazing app. Really helpful for folks who are aspiring things in multiple arenas, be school, be it job changes, be it any interviews that you want. And yeah, do keep yourself active there. Happy to help as much as I can whenever possible. So thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much, Anvita. It was really amazing hosting you. And we would definitely have many more sessions like this, so everyone can stay tuned. Thank you.